Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, I'm Wendy, and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, just about anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for March 11th through 17th. Let's get started. The first thing we sold was a Mercari sale. It was a Netgear Nighthawk wireless router. We got this in the B-Stock liquidation pallet that we purchased for almost $3,500. And our per item cost for the items in that pallet was just under $50, and we only sold this item for $50. But we were just ready to kind of finish off selling everything from that pallet, so we were really glad to see this item go. We have only a few more items left to sell to finish selling everything that we purchased off of that pallet. We still have some turntables. We still have one sound bar, and I think we still have one or two more wireless routers after this. And we are probably in the profit on that pallet as a whole, but it was very difficult to get there. That pallet was definitely a challenge to actually make money on. It was so much work for us, and it is not something that we would purchase again. But if you want to check out the video where we showed us unboxing the pallet and talking about how much we spent and all of that, we will link that in the description box below. You can check that out. All of the remaining sales from this video are going to be from eBay, so we will move on to those. Next up was a Zero Smashers 4 3/4 inch gray plastic medieval stone axe toy. We got this in a thrift store toy bag. We paid just 19 cents for each of the toys in that toy bag. And this toy sold for $9.99, which was our full asking price. It did take quite a while to sell, not a lot of interest on this, but when somebody did finally come looking for it, they did pay full asking price, so that was good. Next up was an item that we got in the most recent storage auction unit that we purchased. We paid $75 for that unit as a whole, and we broke down our per listing cost for each of the items in that unit as 28 cents each. So this was a Free People women's yellow floral in bloom dress. It sold for $34.38 on offer to buyer, and like I said, we had paid just 28 cents for that. We got positive feedback on it. Next up was another item we got in that same unit. This was a vintage 2004 Tomy blue So Adorable interactive My Little Baby doll. So this was like a little interactive toy. It was less than 3 inches tall, and you would push different buttons on it, and it would be interactive with you. And apparently these are very hard to come by, rare, and they're sought after. So this is not a product I was familiar with, had ever heard of, but these sell for good money. So if you ever come across them, they come in several different colors, and I think the style of the different colors is slightly different depending on, what they look like, but they will sell for, ours sold for $35, which was our full asking price. We might have been able to get $40 for it. Ours was, mildly dingy from, probably having been stored in like a not so clean environment like that storage unit for a few months. But if you can find one that is like really pristine, you can probably get a little bit more for it. And they're just so rare and hard to come by. If you ever find one of these, definitely worth listing, and stick to your guns on the price because you can get it. Next up was an American Eagle women's size 10 dark wash high-rise midi stretch pair of jean shorts. We also got these in that same unit. We paid 28 cents for them, and they sold on best offer for $16.55, which was a weird amount, but that's how much they offered. American Eagle is a consistent seller for us. Not for a lot of money, but it sells consistently and it sells quickly, so we always list it, and it does not stick around in our store for very long. Next up was a Country Living magazine. We had gotten free out of a lot of magazines from someone who was giving them away on the Nextdoor app. This sold for $8. We had no cost associated with it, and we got positive feedback on it. Next up was a Barbie patio table piece of furniture, just plastic Barbie furniture that we got through the Facebook Marketplace app. I had bought a big bag of doll accessories, doll furniture, all kinds of doll stuff. And our per item cost from that buy was 67 cents, and this table sold for $11.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was one of those Country Air 8-inch pillow forms. It was new in the package. We had gotten that at the Goodwill bins. We had paid 61 cents for it, and it sold for $10 even on best offer. Next up was a book on tape. It was an audio cassette book on tape. It was not new, it was used. We tested it and it worked. This one was called Decked, a Reagan Riley Mystery by Carol Higgins Clark. We got this at the thrift store for 48 cents and it sold for $7.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a Brighton men's Western style braided leather belt. We got this from a family member, so we had no cost, and it sold for $26.18 on offer to buyer. Brighton is a good, solid seller, definitely a brand to be on the lookout for if you ever see. They make purses, belts, lots of different leather goods. Next up was a lot of 16 pair of women's black fishnet stockings. They were all new in the package. We got all of these out of that $75 storage unit. And I lotted them all together and sold them for $19.98 on offer to buyer. We had paid just 28 cents for those. Next up was a 2001 Marvel 6-inch Spider-Man articulated superposable action figure. This is another Bolo. If you ever find these super articulated, when I say super articulated, I mean like all of the different joints, the toes, the fingers, the elbows, any of the joints on the Spider-Man, they make it to where like he is very posable and you can put him in all kinds of different positions. So those particular Spider-Man figures are really quick sellers, and we find them in toy bags. If we see them in a toy bag at a thrift store, we'll pick up the toy bag for that Spider-Man figure, and I actually did pick up this particular toy bag for this Spider-Man figure. And we paid 72 cents for this particular figure. We had gotten several figures in this bag and broke down our cost per figure of 72 cents. And this one sold for $22.99. We did have to list him for a little bit lower than we normally would because some of his joints were kind of, I would describe them as loose and they wouldn't stay in position very easily. So we did disclose that. He still sold and the buyer seemed happy with it. Next up was an Aris brand replacement remote control. We tested it and it worked. We got that out of that storage auction. It sold for its full asking price of $14.99 and we had paid 28 cents for that. Next up was 51 replacement pieces for a Lego Heart Lake hair salon set. That came out of actually a set that belonged to my daughter, and so we had no cost associated with it because I don't know why we had so many extra pieces for it, but we actually sold the complete set and then somehow we ended up with extra pieces for it. And I'm not really sure why, but we sold the extra pieces for it for $7.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a pair of Sam Edelman women's Merlot leather studded Forsyth ballet flats. We got these at the Goodwill bins. We paid $1.18 for these and they sold for $34.38 on offer to buyer. Next up was a women's Cabby Aurora Paradise maxi halter dress. We got that new with tags at an estate sale. We paid $8.37 for it and that dress sold for $34.38 on offer to buyer. We had that dress sell previously and be returned to us, so we did have some additional cost associated with that with the initial shipping going out to the buyer, and it did take a long time for it to sell again the second time, but it seems like the second buyer is happy with it and it's in its forever home. Next up is another American Eagle item. This one was a dark wash stretch super high-rise pair of jeggings. These came from that same storage auction. So these we also paid just 28 cents for, and these sold for our full asking price of $24.99. So like I said, American Eagle always is a super strong seller for us. Next up was a DVD. It was a brand new sealed DVD of The Odd Couple Season 2. We got this at a garage sale. We paid $1 for it, and it sold for best offer of $11 even. Next up was another item we got out of that same storage auction. This was a No Boundaries women's olive green button-up twill jumpsuit. No Boundaries is not a brand that I typically would list, but I listed this item based on style. I thought this was a really cute jumpsuit and I thought it would sell based on style, and it did sell. It sold really quickly. This cost us 28 cents. Everything out of that unit cost 28 cents, and this one sold for $24.99. Next up, I will go over all of the collectible cards that sold from my husband's personal collection. This week we did have one high value card sell, and when I say high value, I mean any cards valued at $10 or over. This week we sold one high value card valued at $12.99. That's how much it sold for, and that one was a Magic the Gathering Legends card. It was called Chain Lightning, and we got positive feedback on that. And this week we only sold one low value card, and that one sold for $2.29. And that wraps up our sales for the week of March 11th through 17th. The really good thing about this particular week, even though we did not have very many sales, our sales have continued to be low, but our cost of goods were really low. I noticed that with the exception of a couple items, all of our cost of goods were like $1 or under. In fact, our cost of goods in total for this week totaled $17.85, and we were able to flip that into a total sales amount of $408.99. So despite sales being low for this particular week, I did make note of the fact that we have been keeping our cost of goods low and really doing a great job of flipping that into, some really good sales. So we're trying to continue to think positively about that. And in real time, sales have been picking up really nicely, and I would definitely say that they're on the upswing. So I hope that that's true for you guys. If that is true for you guys, leave us a comment below letting us know how your sales are doing. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by hitting the like button. And if you're not already subscribed, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel by hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell turned on. And stick around for the next video that's going to pop up over here, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.